Dateline, Gallifrey. The Time War moves on. As the Time Lords commit to a full invasion at the gates of Elysium, two of the podcasters decide to review a future episode. While Taylor records in the recliner of the TARDIS, high above the untempered schism, Matt records through an old-timey microphone inside the mouth of the Nightmare Child. Go get 'em, boys!
Broadcasting by way of Gallifrey. Stand by for podcast. This is Voices from the Vortex.
Voices from the Vortex reviews Season 8, Episode 4. Listen.
Ta-da! Finally! A good episode!
Oh my god. This episode was the best. It was so good.
It was like we held our breath for so long. It was a deep breath. Even when we ran into a Dalek, we just wanted the robot of Sherwood to listen. And it did.
And it did. It heard our plea.
It was amazing.
Yes, it was so good.
Hey everybody. Oh, hi guys, yeah.
Hey there.
Hi-oh.
Hey,
this is
welcome
Matt.
to Voices from the Vortex.
That's Taylor.
Yes, and that's Matt.
Yay!
Woohoo!
guys, seriously, I'm 100% in the belief that Doctor Who is amazing and wonderful and fantastic, but damn, I needed a really good episode. I needed one.
Yeah. Deep Breath was good. It was really good. It was no 11th hour, but it was good, right? Into the Dalek was okay. We've talked about this. And Robot of Sherwood was great. We loved it last week.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun in Robot of Sherwood. But this...
Yes. This was the first one where several things happened. First of all, I was like, something big happened. Something big in the history of the show and sort of other things, which we'll get to. But also, this is where I really felt like Peter Capaldi nailed it.
He did. He had this, and as you see in the episodes, we'll talk about it. It's like he had a moment of humanity, a moment of I have to know and I have to see and I have to feel it, and it just overwhelmed him. And it was so good.
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, he had some grumpy moments, but he was less grumpy, I like a grumpy doctor, but he doesn't have to be grumpy all the time. You know what I mean? That's not the... I like him to have some grumpy moments, which makes him the grumpy doctor, but he doesn't need to be grumpy all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and we'll see more grumpy doctor, which is fine, but you're right. Just the fact that he seemed to have a little bit of fun in this episode. Just to kind of... There's so much to talk about. Just to start, really, really excited. Favorite scene of the entire thing, and it's perfect. Just what we're talking about. The grumpy doctor, him and the kid, him and little Danny Pink, and him talking to Danny Pink about being scared. And it just, Clara is just like, "What are you doing? Why are you talking to him like this? Come on!" And he does it. He gives us this sort of humanity where he's talking to the kid. He's saying it's going to be okay, and I love that.
Yeah, you could really tell, this was written by Moffat, and you could really tell that it was. This was one of those really strong, doctor speeches that's, we're going to talk about for a while. Being scared, it's a superpower, there's danger in the room, it's you. That was just, it was brilliant. And Capaldi delivered it flawlessly. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat this whole episode. And not just because it was super creepy.
And it was.
But it was really creepy.
Crap out of me.
Yeah. But also, just the acting was superb, and the writing was just great. And I don't know. I can't say enough about how good this episode was. And I really hope that the next one doesn't let us down, because I'm on such a high from this one, you know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah.
It's like we're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Because we got a really good episode, and we can hang in there now.
Yeah.
This is what we were worried about.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too. We talked a lot about, we were worried about Capaldi, And I brought up the fact that I was kind of worried about Matt Smith at first because I loved Tenet.
Sure.
And one of the things that I kind of a parallel that I noticed here is it wasn't until the Weeping Angels two-parter with Matt Smith that I was like, okay, I was like, he's really starting to get into the role, and I'm really starting to dig what he's doing. And this was about the same. It was about the 4th episode in, and I just thought that was interesting that it took me the same amount of time to really get into him. You know what I mean?
This must be how the rest of the world felt about Matt. I love Matt Smith right off the bat. I thought he could do no wrong, and maybe that was just me. Apparently that was just me. Everyone else was like, no, we're going to take a minute, see how we feel about this dude. No big deal. But you gotta make sure that he's not, full of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way.
Well, I trust the casting directors and Moffat and everybody that they're going to pick somebody who's really good.
Right.
So I didn't doubt that he was going to be good, but after the first couple episodes, there's kind of that uneasiness. I was sure I was going to like Matt Smith, but when it first started, I was like, he's not Tenet, which was hard. So.
Right.
Now all those fears and all those anxieties, for me anyway, they're gone. Capaldi was brilliant in this, and I can't wait to see what he does next. There are a couple of things that we're going to talk about here that he does that I feel really pontificate how beautiful Capaldi's Doctor is, and how beautiful he's going to continue to be. And just to begin with, just some of the stuff that I like from the very beginning of the episode, that scene with him, with his supposition, with him just going over the question, walking back and forth in the TARDIS, and you get this man who is just doing everything in his power to try to explain to himself something he is desperately afraid of, and he's just trying to rationalize it and break it down. And that's not something we've gotten yet with him. We've got him talking about stuff, but not really introspectively looking at who he is and what the world is like and why the world is like, and I like that a lot. I do. That was a great moment for me. That was right off the bat. It sets up how scary this episode is, and right off the bat, it sets up just how much you want him to ask the questions and answer the questions, which is I didn't feel that before. Yeah, he's sitting on top of the TARDIS. He's meditating. He went underwater, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen that effect or that I don't think I've ever seen them do that on the show, which is pretty neat. And then and then he was looking. Yeah, and then he was looking at stock footage of lions. That's my only complaint about this episode.
It's
like, really, you couldn't
sometimes the BBC's just got to use what it's got in the library.
Anyway, I also think, and this is just my assumption here, but I think we have a catchphrase. And
Which
it's
is?
Question. I think it's question, something, or proposition, or whatever,
Well, and he said it in every one of them. He says, what's the question? That's not the question. What's the question? That's not the question. You're pudding brains. What's the question? Like he said in Deep Breath, he was trying to lead them to, the question is, have there been any other similar murders? And you go, kind of is the question. And every episode he's asked that question. Maybe the catchphrase is a little bit more, he's a teacher.
Yeah, it's always before he asks the question, he says question or proposition or whatever. And I think that's going to be his catchphrase, which is pretty neat. I kind of like that.
That is kind of cool. I did like him doing that. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's not a exclamation of enjoyment or adventure. You know what I mean? It's it's really, characteristic of his personality now, sort of a more of a detective kind of thing and figuring out stuff rather than Alonzi or Geronimo. I'm going to jump down into the
It's more an idea of who I am and what I'm going to be doing for the world and why I'm going to be doing it for the world. Here's who I am. It's a very here's who I am moment. And that's good. You want that, but it's every episode, and that really helps us define who he is. That was the thing. I think that's the thing we've all been missing. I honestly think that it is. Everyone's been so worried about Capaldi and just like, what is he doing? What is he up to? What are we getting from this man? Why is he the Doctor? That's the question we've been asking. Not who is he, but why. Why is he the Doctor? And he asks it in that very first episode, doesn't he? He says, why this face? Who found me this face? Where does it come from? I'm telling myself something. What is it? And he's asking, why am I the Doctor? And I think we're getting into a groove with it. I think what we couldn't see in the first few episodes, what we see now, is that he's figuring it out, that he wants to teach others, and he wants to teach himself, and he wants to be a doctor, not just about fixing things and fighting bad guys, but about understanding why. I think that's kind of cool. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
There was another interesting thing about this. There was the scene where Clara gets to the TARDIS, and which I liked when he was in her room, and he was like, why do you have 3 mirrors? Why don't you just turn your head?
That was kind of cool.
And then later, the callback to that joke where he was like, it's because her face is so wide, she needs 3 mirrors.
She needs 3 mirrors.
That was hilarious. But anyway, she's in the TARDIS, and she's talking about... she's getting plugged in to the TARDIS, telepathically. Right. And he tells her, this is your whole life. From birth, it'll give you sort of a preview of birth to death. And she says, don't really want to see that, thank you. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting, because it's the second time this season that she has, not wanted to know anything about her death. I don't know if it was just coincidence, or if that's a hint.
I'm wondering if maybe that's just a piece of the character. We know Clara, her first entry into Doctor Who was that she died so many times, and that she lived so many lives, and we couldn't understand it. We couldn't affect our understanding of it around her. We couldn't say, okay, she's dying so many times because she's an impossible girl. It was, we don't understand why a character would do this, and why would the Doctor let it happen. Season 7 with her is establishing that she's a woman who has to die, and that's really dark. That's kind of sad, and it doesn't really define her. It just defines what's going on with her. So now I think we're getting to this. Yeah, she doesn't want to know because she's lived through that. She understands that. Whether she remembers it necessarily or not, the conversation she had with the Doctor on the TARDIS and Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, or whether she remembers some of those lives or not when she went into the Doctor's time stream, she doesn't want to know anymore. She's lived that life. She's died, and why would she do that? Why would she keep doing that? So yeah, she doesn't want to know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think it's really interesting that it's twice now, sort of the same dialogue back and forth.
You're worried she's going to die.
Something about your death. Oh, I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of interesting. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
Let's see what. So many beautiful scenes. Before we get into the really heavy stuff, though, love that little date. I love they kept going back to the date.
Yeah, and I thought that was cool too because it paralleled into the Dalek where they kept showing him before stuff happened. Or it was him after, thinking back to how bad it went. So it was her turn now. She was thinking back to how bad the date went. That was pretty cool.
It was cute. And, it's always fun to have sort of a good setup for a romance where the two characters just don't get it right. And I like that. I like that they weren't getting it right. Maybe they will. Maybe this is just... This is a good little start to something. It really brought them together. And I like these two. I like him. I was really worried about liking him. I didn't think I would.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know why. It's weird whenever there's something new. We had the new Doctor. We had the new companion, Clara. We weren't sure we were going to like her. We all liked Amy, and we all liked Matt Smith, and we all liked Rose, and then we had Martha, and then some people still don't like Martha. I don't understand that, but wow, that's great. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, let's go ahead. Well, let's talk about the orphanage bedroom scene. And we'll just kind of go from there.
With Danny?
Okay. With Danny, yes, with little Rupert Pink.
Rupert Pink.
We had the great speech, of course, about being scared is a superpower. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked him sitting in the chair, going, "I can't find him." I was like, "Where's Wally? He's not in every book." He's like, "Oh, that's some hours of my life I'd like to get back."
He's looked for it.
Yeah. Just imagine like a pile of books, like that says he's got a pile of books, 2 piles, one where he's found Wally in them, and another where much bigger pile where no Wally in these books. Yeah.
What is his obsession with fun things like this? I love that he has them, but he gets it on his head, in his mind. He's like, I can find Wally in a book. I gotta find him in all the books. And, no, Doctor, come back, reel it in, boy. You're okay.
Yeah. I guess it's Where's Wally in England?
Yeah. Hey, any of you British listeners, if any of your fans are British, Where's Wally? Is that Where's Waldo? We got Waldo. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's Where's Waldo. It's a man, and he's got a red and white striped sweater and hat and glasses, and he's always trekking around places. Right.
And, he goes with his friends, and he loses a whole bunch of stuff every time he goes, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, Waldo, look, you dropped your glasses," and he's too nearsighted to see where he dropped them. Dude, you forgot your hat. And he's like, "I'll buy a new hat."
Yeah. So, okay, really creepy scene. Really creepy.
Yeah. So the premise of this episode is about the idea that maybe something has evolved to be the perfect hider, that they can't be seen, creatures that are always with us.
Yes.
Which I love. Super creepy.
I was like, a new super creepy Moffat, monster. I was excited. Here's my sort of theory for the whole episode. Okay. And we might disagree. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
And there's one plot hole, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
My theory is that this whole episode spawned from the moment when Clara was under the bed and grabbed young Doctor's leg. Okay?
Right.
That spawned this whole thing. It gave him this memory. He didn't really focus on it until apparently now he decides, there's something about that. I need to look into that. And he looks into it. Other people have had dreams about monsters under the bed. He gets it in his head that there's this perfect hider. And so he goes and investigates it. So my theory is there was nothing outside the spaceship that was coming in, when they were on the spaceship later in the episode. And then also the big plot hole is, well, then what was on the bed? Right. It could have been a kid. It could have been E.T. It kind of looked like E.T. a little bit.
Right.
when it was behind Clara. But my thing is, I don't think it matters what was on the bed. At least for now. I don't think it mattered.
Right.
I think maybe this is something else they may revisit. Like Matt Smith looking in his room in the hotel. And it's something like that. And they didn't revisit it till the time of the Doctor's last episode. So this may be something. What was there? What was on the bed? Because it didn't look like a kid to me. So I don't know. But I don't think it matters.
Okay.
That's my thing.
Okay.
Your turn. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's a couple of things going on in this episode. Before I say what I think it is, because I have an interesting little theory and something I really hope. I'm probably not right about it, which is fine, but I really hope I am. But we'll get to that in just a sec here. I want to start off by saying there's a couple of scenes in this episode that are really, really important to note to understand what's really going on. So, first thing, let's skip ahead a little bit to where you're right. They're at the end of all things, which is interesting that the TARDIS could even go there because the TARDIS refused so adamantly to even go to where the humans were all looking for utopia. And that was supposed to be the end, but this is obviously further ahead. What's interesting is you're right. Everything that whole scene is set up. This whole episode is set up to make you question, which is fine. But that whole scene is set up to really give you two pieces of information. One, there is clearly an argument to be made that something is there. And two, the Doctor is doing everything in his power to convince either himself or Clara that it's not, even though he wants to see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
The Doctor...
Yeah, because he says all that stuff. He says,
right.
It's the ship cooling. Oh, it's the, when I unlock the door, it's opening by itself because of the pressure. Yeah.
Right. And all of those things make sense, but they're also the things that we say to ourselves to convince ourselves that it's not really there. Keep in mind that speech he gives at the very beginning with Clara, where he's talking about, having that dream. Because you wake up in the dream, and there you are, and you feel like something's wrong. You turn on the light. You tell yourself that nothing can be there. It's the house settling. That he tells her that. So we see that again at the very end. It's like he's waking up in the bed. It's like he's in the nightmare at the end of time. And he's trying to convince himself there's nothing there, but we already know he believes there is. Okay. So then we gotta fast forward to the end. My God. I cried. Like, it was the most beautiful thing. The TARDIS escapes and lands, the Doctor's knocked out, and the TARDIS lands, and Clara goes out, and she's in a barn, and she's this kid crying in a bed, and she thinks it's Danny Pink, and she gets under the bed, and these two people come in, and they're talking, and they're having this little piece of conversation. They're trying to talk to this kid about coming inside with all the other kids, all the other boys. Come in, you don't have to sleep out here. And as they're leaving, the one says, he'll never join the military if he can't stop crying. And the other person says, well, you think he's not going to go to the military? You think he'll go to the academy? He's never going to be a Time Lord. And that's Clara's eyes become her head, and everybody.
So did mine. Yeah.
I physically gasped. I grabbed my mouth and held it because I was like, "What?" Because that's where she is. She's in the Doctor's, one of his early childhood memories, one of his early childhood homes. And she's under the bed. And when he gets up out of the bed, because he hears the Doctor in the TARDIS screaming for Clara, he gets up out of bed. She grabs his ankle. So right there, she becomes the nightmare that he remembers. Yeah. And she convinces him to get back in bed. And she talks to him and tells him the most beautiful things I've ever heard her say to anyone. And anyway, you're right. She implants it right there at the very beginning of his life, that this idea that there's something else, that there's something else in the world or the universe to fear. The fear is good, and she sort of nurtures him into believing that it's okay to be afraid, and she teaches him all these things that he turns around and teaches her again later. But here's the thing, though, like, if this is something he's always felt and always thought and always known, he wouldn't just suddenly think it, and go, oh, what if there really is something that can hide? Unless he, he starts seeing things in the TARDIS.
I have kind of a theory on that, but go ahead.
I was saying he starts seeing things in the TARDIS, like, the chalk that's suddenly not on the book that he left it anymore, or the words that he swears he didn't write on the board, and maybe...
I think he did.
You think he did?
I don't remember. Yeah, I do.
I don't know. This whole episode's meant to play on that, but I don't think there was nothing. I think the thing on the bed was the thing on the bed. I think it is a thing on the bed. I don't think it was a kid, because it leaves that room so fast, in a flash of light. And that's the trick of the camera, that they're playing it up to make you feel that way. I think it was a thing.
Maybe it was Missy. We haven't seen her in a while.
Right. Yeah. So all these things lead me to my theory on what this thing is. Does everyone else remember the episode Midnight? We don't have an explanation for what that was, and that's fine. You're not supposed to.
I do.
I
do.
Yeah.
You in the back.
Yes. What do you think it was? I think this is a good enough explanation. These two episodes could easily tie together. They tie together because we don't have an explanation. They tie together because everything that happens in both these episodes could be the same creature. the creature that attacks them in midnight you never see, and it has to take over a body as a host. Sky, from that episode, she screams out, "It's coming for me, oh God, it's coming for me." You know, she knows it's coming for her. She gives all these clues that she's the reason it's there. And if there was something that was a constant companion, if we all were born with this shadow that follows us, that could have been Sky's shadow. That could have been something. She saw one of those, and like the doctor said in this episode, listen, who knows what would happen if you saw something that was never meant to be seen. The parallels between the two are strong enough for me to feel like maybe this is something else. Maybe this is they're laying down all this groundwork for a new villain. And Russell T Davies began it in Midnight, and Moffat's continuing it. And listen, that's my theory.
It's interesting.
Indeed.
I think it'd be really neat.
Right.
I think if they would have done that, they would have done a little of that repeating shtick, you know, to sort of hint that it was the same monster. But I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and maybe that was just one thing it did. The angels don't always send you back in time.
Yeah. Sometimes they crack your neck.
Sometimes they just break your neck. Look at there, soldier.
Yeah. Let's see. I also liked how there was this little toy soldier. And he was the soldier without a gun, which I thought was really interesting. It really reminded me of the quote from Moffat where he talks a lot about how, you know, they didn't give him a gun, they gave him a sonic screwdriver.
Right.
He fixes things. It really, I mean, the soldier without a gun, it's the doctor. You know what I mean?
It is. You're
the
right.
symbolism was there, and it was really sweet.
Well, remember what Clara said to little Rupert Pink about that soldier? When Rupert says, well, he's the worst of them, he doesn't have a gun. And Clara says, well, he doesn't need a gun because he's the commander. He's in charge. He's the colonel or whatever. He's in charge. He's so good. You know, he has all these other soldiers he commands. And what do we know about this doctor is that he is like a soldier. He inspires others to fight for him. So you're right. It's very much so. He is the soldier without a gun.
Well, and the great thing about that, too, is she gives it to him, and then Orson Pink gives it to her later, which I'll get to in a second, and then she gives it to the doctor at the end, which is really cool. And then who knows where it ends up, but...
well, somehow it's a family heirloom. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
How does it get back to her to get back in the family?
About. They really hinted a lot at Danny traveling with them later, you know. And then they also hinted at her and him getting together.
Well, this episode, it wasn't even hinting. That was just implied. They say, "Oh, you know, he looks just like him." Oh, my great great grandmother or whatever was a time traveler. Haha! And well, really? Okay. You know, that's clearly it is Clara. Yeah. Clearly Clara.
Well, because she says, you know, you asked if you knew me, you know, so he recognizes her from something, photos or something, and then he says, you know, he's giving it to her, and she says, it's a family heirloom. He's like, exactly.
Giving it back.
Giving it to family. Yeah, so that was really cool.
Knew. Yeah, Orson knew who she was. He figured it out. He's pretty clever. There's a big thing though I think we're all missing. It's something really, 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 really huge. I want to see if you caught it. Where did Clara end up at the end? Right? Where was she? If that was the doctor. Where was she? She was on Gallifrey, right?
She was on Gallifrey. Now, we have already talked about this because I couldn't wait for the podcast to talk to you about this. How the heck do they get to Gallifrey? Now, what we discussed was... Okay, from what we know, the show reboots in 2005. Gallifrey is gone. We get a little more information here and there. There was a time war, and it was time-locked. Okay?
Right.
So the Doctor can never return to Gallifrey. This is his words. He could never return to Gallifrey.
Right.
He can never see the glorious... red sky again, and the silver trees and all that stuff.
Right.
So, but apparently he can.
No, hold on. Now back up. You're making the same mistake everyone else is making. Every single thing the Doctor says about Gallifrey, from the time about where it is and what's happened to it, from the time New Who starts all the way up to the 50th, is the Doctor's perception of what happened. Remember, that's exactly what he says to himself. He says, I'm not going to remember any of this, am I? No, the timelines are too convoluted. So everything kind of snaps back to where it makes sense for him. He imagines that he ended the war and destroyed Gallifrey. The time lock is his idea, is his invention. Not that he created the time lock, but that his rationale, that the time lock exists against the war, so Gallifrey during the war is locked away in the time war.
Yeah, well, that's what would have happened if he used the moment. It would have time locked it.
But none of that happened.
Exactly. Right. No, I agree with you.
From the very first second we see the Doctor and Rose, Gallifrey's safe and fine. It's in a pocket universe, yes. Current Gallifrey is in a pocket universe. Remember, that's what he says. You'll be frozen in an instant of time. We're going to take the whole planet at that 1 second, that one moment right before it's destroyed, and freeze it in an instant of time in a pocket universe. That moment is frozen.
Yes.
That does not mean Gallifrey from the past is frozen.
Okay.
Gallifrey can still be out there.
So
here's the big
Doctor
thing.
Could have visited pre-war Gallifrey at any point.
No, because he thought it was gone.
Well, no, but he had the ability to.
But he didn't know he had the ability to. He
was
under the impression that he destroyed Gallifrey and was gone. But yes, he could have gone home anytime. He could have just been like, hey, TARDIS, take me home, and like flip the switch and open the door and been like, hey, Ma, Pa, what's going on today? And they would have been like, Opa! And it would have been good.
Nothing, we're just getting ready for the Time War. Wait a minute!
What? Now, okay, so it is implied that all of Gallifrey's history is sort of off limits for him, and we don't know. It's never said. We don't really know if it's because the time lock locks it away, or if if he were to go, it would be a huge paradox. We don't know if it's forbidden because you can't. Maybe Gallifrey is the one planet you can't travel through time on because the time limit has rules about it, or maybe just the TARDIS won't go, or the Doctor feels compelled not to run away from it like he did Captain Jack after Captain Jack got his power from the Vortex to keep living. So we don't really know the reason why, but the Doctor feels compelled never to be able to go home, but to find the current form of Gallifrey wherever it is. But that's not the thing we're all missing. That's not what's driving me insane. They said it twice. Clara puts her fingers in the TARDIS. The Doctor makes it 100% clear. We are only traveling within your lifespan, your timeline. She had control of the TARDIS. The TARDIS had psychically linked with her. It could only go within her timeline. When the hell was she on Gallifrey? And why was she there when the Doctor was a kid?
I don't know.
Someone explain how that's a part of her timeline. Cause
if she was there to do this thing. She had to do this thing. She had to fulfill the time loop,
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe, but again, that doesn't necessarily explain how that's a part of her timeline. Like, within her, the Doctor's 100% on this. Like, he's telling her, like, she's like, what if I end up somewhere crazy? Like, what if we don't get where we... He's like, Clara, it's gonna be you as a kid. That's where we're gonna land. It's within your timeline when you were a kid. Like, and then they land where Danny Pink is because she's distracted by Danny Pink. But escaping from the end of the universe or whatever, the end of time itself, it has to be within her timeline. So how did she end up on Gallifrey?
Did you catch the cloister bell?
I did.
It rang, and I'm wondering if that was just because it was the end of the universe and there was something bad was happening outside the TARDIS. But I thought that was interesting that the cloister bell went off.
Cloister bell goes off anytime there's imminent danger
before they
to the
left
TARDIS
to go
or
to
the
Gallifrey.
universe.
Yeah.
They keep teasing this huge thing about Clara at the end of the season. They keep saying there's something huge coming up and an explanation why the TARDIS didn't want her there and all this stuff. And I think it has to do with the fact that she's a part of Gallifrey. I think it has to do with the fact that she is somehow involved in the Doctor's childhood. We've seen... Well, now, here's the only other thing I can think, though. Ready? She's on Gallifrey in one scene in one episode. Isn't she? Not the 50th.
Yeah.
Name of the Doctor.
Uh-huh.
A version of Clara was there all throughout the Doctor's time stream. So maybe, when it says within her timeline, it's also referring to the multiple billions of Claras that existed throughout the Doctor's timeline.
Right. Well, because she helped him find the TARDIS, right?
Right. So maybe that's it.
So, yeah, maybe that's, she was there. And
interesting, though, that anywhere the Doctor's ever been or gone is considered a part of her timeline?
I don't know.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey lines.
Yes. That's really, really interesting. That's a good point. I also liked that was apparently that was the same barn from the 50th anniversary that the War Doctor goes to. That was pretty cool. And it was cool because they showed, footage from the 50th.
Yeah.
Which I thought was neat. The little
throwback.
Little throwback.
Little continuity.
Throwback to a few episodes ago.
6 episodes ago.
Okay, yeah, okay. Let's see, what was... So, yeah, Gallifrey.
There's a lot going on in this.
That's just... The Gallifrey thing is weird to me, and I understand... And here's what I think. I think we're going to get a Moffat interview very soon about what happened, because that's usually what happens sometimes. If there's something...
Right.
People are like, okay, how did this happen? He's going to come and say, no, look, listen, we never said that he couldn't go to past Gallifrey.
Right.
He just didn't know he could, which totally makes sense to me. I just think that's really crappy for the Doctor. If he ever found out, he'd be like, you mean all this time?
Right.
I could have gone back. Oh, come on. And the other thing, too, Clara makes him leave.
You must never look. You have to promise me you'll never, ever, ever, ever look.
Now, I understand it's catastrophic to see, your younger self, but he can't ever go back to the past. Like, she couldn't tell him, like, hey, guess what you can do?
Right.
You can go see the beautiful planet again. It's in the past, but you can go see it. I thought that was weird that she didn't let him see. But
there are a couple of... And there are all these little things here that, you can kind of reference to Old Who and see how they're building stuff. Moffat made that question to everyone. He put that out there. He said, show me where they say that Time Lords can't be human. Where they're aliens. And, I kind of see where he's thinking. I like where he's going with it. Because Gallifreyans built an academy where the Gallifreyans could go and train themselves to become Time Lords. They look through the Untempered Schism, and they're given this inspiration and this understanding of time, and then they work within these certain boundaries in order to, these boundaries to be able to train themselves in these powers that are latent inside of them. So it's neat, the idea that Gallifreyans, that the whole planet of people, the Gallifrey, it wasn't just Time Lords, the Gallifreyans were just people, and they lived there, and they, we saw that in the 50th, these just people, these civilians, trying to escape the war that was happening around them, and the Time Lords had soldiers, like the military, and then they had Time Lords themselves, who were the rulers, I guess. And the old show showed...
Rassilon and all them,
right.
with their awful plan.
With their terrible plans. Yeah. Well, and the old show shows so much of the Time Lords, and the old show shows Gallifreyans, too. Anyone who wants to go back and rewatch some of the old ones, go back and watch The Deadly Assassin, because the companion of the time is thrown out of the Citadel, and she meets the Wastelanders, the Gallifreyans who live in the wastelands around the Citadel, and helps start a revolt against the Time Lords. So, we've seen that's true, that happens. But I like that they're building on this idea that they're just people, because with everything Moffat's talking about, that's what it's going to be. He's going to come out and he's going to go, hey guys, Gallifrey and Gallifreyans are related to humans, and Time Lords are just, superpowered versions of them, and everyone's going to throw the brakes on, but then no one's going to be able to dispute it, because it's all laid out for you. I really feel like that's where we're headed. I think he was talking about he's got that really great cliffhanger to go with season 9, and I'm just like, please, let it be about this. Because that will just throw everyone for a loop.
Yeah.
I love that.
That was the one thing I really loved about this episode, was it was something that was just, it's like we know a little bit more about the Doctor as a child, and it really just like was some big plot points, and this was one of those.
We got so little from it, but we know so much more now.
Yeah, no, we do. And that's the thing, is the first three episodes, it was just, they were some adventures.
Yeah. And
I feel like with all the other Doctors, we had a lot of more plot points here and there, of the whole big story of the Doctor, and this was one of them. So I loved it.
I really wish I had been in that room when they were deciding the order of these episodes, because I really wish they had put the Dalek episode later, and I really wish this episode had been second, because I feel like Deep Breath was good, but you really wanted to trust this guy, and you need to trust this guy, and the best thing you could have done is given us this episode, because I feel more like I can trust him now. I've seen the humanity in him in this, and I like it.
I really loved the hug at the end where she hugged him, and he was like, "No, I don't like you. I don't like the hug." Like that was still, that was even better than the hug at the beginning in Deep Breath. I felt like this is like, okay, he's the Doctor. Like, I can see it now again.
Right.
We were worried a little, and I'm not worried anymore. I really am not. He was brilliant.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so you asked a question earlier, and I had a theory, and I forgot, but I remember now.
Okay.
You said, if Clara implanted this in his mind when he was little, why is he just now remembering it?
Right.
Here's my theory. You remember in Lost when Daniel Faraday knocks on the hatch door in the past, and Desmond comes out and he says, "Hey, Desmond, I'm Daniel Faraday. You need to go find my mother. She's blah 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 blah."
Right.
Then it cuts, and Desmond wakes up, and he's like, "I just remembered something," right? And she's like, "What was it? It was a dream." He goes, "No, it was a memory." We in the Lost community had a long conversation about this, and our theory was he didn't remember it until it happened for him, like for the other person. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't until it was Clara's time to actually do this that it was important for him to remember it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a convenient theory, like a convenient plot device. I feel it works. Exposition
always is.
Yeah.
And you're right. And I think a big part of that too, Doctor Who really kind of uses with its time travel theories, is that the stuff that's happened hasn't necessarily happened yet. That if it happens in your future, but in your future it happens to your past, then your future is affected by it, even though the whole time you were affected by it, it hadn't happened yet for you. The wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey ball theory is a convenient way of exposition to just say, oh, stuff happens and we get to write what we want. But it kind of gives an explanation that time isn't cause and effect, right? Well, maybe this is the perfect example. He didn't think of this, even though it affected him his whole life, because it was just about to happen to him in the past for him to think of it. Yeah. So you're right. It's convenient, but it also was kind of happening at the same time in two different points in his life. So he was changing. The exact same thing happens to Kazran Sardek in The Christmas Carol.
Right. Yeah.
Almost moment for moment, that he is one way in his life, and what happens? The Doctor goes back and changes him, and he's physically changing in the future because of what the Doctor's doing in the past. And if he's physically changing in the future, why wouldn't his whole life have been different? But it doesn't. It doesn't change around him until it affects him, until it finally finishes changing who he's going to be. And by that time, of course, other things have happened, and it turned him into an even more bitter man. But So it's sort of like time is changing and melting like a bubble around you. And as stuff is happening, it isn't exactly popping the bubble or changing the bubble. You're changing, and then once you're done, the bubble changes too. Reality reasserts itself and fixes itself. So that way it all made sense in the first place. I think that's exactly what happened here, is it happened to him, and he was affected by it his whole life, but it didn't really dawn on him that it had happened to him until it was about to happen to him.
I love this show.
Right? Anyone out there followed that? If you did, I want to give you a hug. Because it broke my brain to say it.
Yeah, I was like, you're just repeating certain words in different order. But it makes sense.
There's this really great moment in like the second episode of Star Trek Voyager, in which like they're having a discussion of temporal mechanics and causality, and like Tom Paris is sitting there and he's like, wait a minute, I don't understand. How could something happen to it? How could we see something that's about to happen even though it hasn't happened? Am I making sense? And the captain goes, no, clearly you don't understand quantum mechanics and temporal theory, and just starts talking about it anyway, and Tom Paris is like, whatever. And I just feel like most shows treat it like that. Like let's just have one character say the obvious of, am I making sense when I say I don't understand this? And then everyone else goes, nope. But this show doesn't do that. This show goes, screw you and wanting to understand. We're going to do it anyway. Catch up or don't.
Yeah.
We gave you one line once to explain it. If you didn't get it from that, you're done. Go get a degree in quantum mechanics and come back. Such an adult show.
Yeah. Let me see if I have anything else written down here. I think that was it. I think that's all I had.
So, final thoughts. This is, for me, I think, the best episode of the season. This is one of my favorite episodes. Of all of New Who, this is standing out as one of my favorite episodes. It's in the top 5, and I don't know where yet. This
is definitely going to be one that people are going to be talking about for a while.
Yes.
One of Capaldi's, you know how we talked about how last week we were like, hey, if we're trying to show somebody new, Doctor Who, this Robots of Sherwood would be a good episode to show. No, this one.
Right?
Would almost be good. And it's
this is the Capaldi episode to show people.
Yes, this is definitely it.
Matt Smith has a couple of really good ones. David Tennant has some good ones. Obviously, Blink is sort of everybody's go-to, which is a David Tennant one. Or Love and Monsters is a good one because it's fun. I personally have always said you should show people the Silence in the Library 2-parter, because if they don't like Doctor Who but they ever read The Time Traveler's Wife, they're totally going to get it. But Matt Smith, Midnight is a good one, a good standalone one. I think with Eccleston, if you show them the one with Charles Dickens, it's such a fun one to show people. The Dalek is a great one to show people, and Matt Smith has some good ones that are just the Vincent Van Gogh episode will break anyone down. It's such a beautiful one. This right here, or I love Christmas Carol.
Asylum of the Daleks. Yeah, I would say Asylum of the Daleks too.
But now we have a Capaldi one. Listen is Capaldi's first. Robot of Sherwood, but I think Listen, because we're not developing Capaldi anymore. This is like, okay, maybe this is what makes sense. The first 3 episodes, we were still trying to figure him out, right? So we're still developing who he's going to be. So people watch Robot of Sherwood, they're going to go, why is this guy acting this way? But when you watch him act like this way in this one, you're like, I get it. This is the Doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. The development period is done. It's the invest in him period.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like all his jokes really just hit, and the way he was delivering his lines in this, and he was more, I feel like he was just maybe a little more animated. I don't know. I think also, but probably just as an actor, Capaldi's probably getting more into a stride at this point.
Right.
What he wants to do with it. The first couple episodes, I'm sure he's practiced a bit, but now that he's really getting into it, I think this if he acts like this in all the episodes, it's brilliant for me. I love it.
Absolutely.
And kudos to Stephen Moffat for writing this episode. I mean, one of his best for sure.
I was worried because the couple of episodes where he was tag team writing with someone else and they just weren't living up to it, but maybe it was. I honestly think it was the someone else who was keeping him down. You know, look. No offense to Phil Ford, but just Moffat should have just written that episode.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have done a couple things differently, but
yeah, not many. They would have.
But this one for me is up there with Blink and Silence in the Library.
Yeah. I agree.
And 11th Hour. I mean, the 11th Hour is one of my favorites.
Best opening episode to Doctor Who. Best first episode.
I almost want to say best episode of Doctor Who. I love the 11th Hour so much.
It is the most solid Doctor Who adventure. It's got everything about the Doctor that you love. It's post-regeneration, so you have no idea who this man is. The build-up, the lead-up in that episode, to him wearing the clothes, to him stepping out to the attraction and just saying, basically, run. And
you don't need
that
to know,
moment seals it.
Yeah, and you don't need to know anything about the show prior. You know, you don't need to know anything about Tenet or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you could start there, and it's perfect.
And anyone who knows me, and I write a lot. I do comics, I do cartoons, and I write the skits and stuff, the cold opens and stuff for our podcast. And anyone who knows me and my writing knows I love starting stuff in media res. I love starting a story in the middle of this stuff happening. I actually, one of my absolute favorite things when I was a little bit younger was we used to run a lot of Star Wars tabletop RPGs. And I used to run them, and people were playing them, right? And one of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite stories whenever I had new people to run, opened with a guy getting thrown through a window. You know, it just opened with a brawl happening. And I love that idea. Just this, you have no idea what's going on. Why are these people here? We'll figure it out. just start with something explosive, and that's what the 11th Hour is. The 11th Hour is, son of a, what is going on? And oh my god, he's going to die.
Yeah, no time for a nap.
No time for a nap. Deep Breath gave us a nap.
Yeah, he got a nap. Tenet had a nap.
Christmas Invasion had a nap.
Yeah, sure.
What's his face? Peter Davidson had a pretty good nap.
I'd say McGann had the best nap of all.
He died.
He died.
Okay? McGann's nap was he died. He finally got to die and be at peace, and then, oh no, I gotta be awake and regenerate. Dang you!
Yeah. All right.
Pertwee had a nap. Pertwee had a nap. Sorry,
sure.
guys. I'm good. Okay.
All right. Well,
you know,
Matthew?
wait, hey, yeah.
What? What were you going to say? Go ahead.
There's something that's about to happen, and I just want everyone to know that I love all the time before when this stuff happens, like all the rest of the podcast, but this is kind of my favorite part.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it?
It's time for. Oh my god, that promo!
Oh my god, that promo!
Oh my god, that promo!
That's new. Yes, hands. Can I just say, fast forward to the end of the promo. I love seeing the two-eyed thing in basically wrapped up in like crazy man chains.
Yeah. We don't know what this thing is.
Why would you have him? Like, what purpose does it serve to have a crazy alien that you have to constrict and chain up?
Yeah, well, if you remember from the synopsis, it detects guilt or something, or
the teller detects guilt
or something. I don't know. Yeah, it knows if you're guilty or something like that.
And it knows if you're awake. It knows if you've been bad or good, so be good, for goodness sake. It's the teller!
Teller's coming to town.
Zing! I really want this episode to basically be Ocean's 11 with the Doctor. Is everyone else on board with this?
I think so. I think they're going to have a couple extra. It's going to be a gang again, like on Dinosaurs, on a spaceship,
right? On a
they're spaceship,
gang, in a bank.
Yeah.
Well, and like they've already said, like there's a shapeshifter and there's like a nerd. There's like a cyber geek or something, and the Doctor and Clara, and I'm just like, wait, where are you picking your people? Like, are you going to like cliched bank robbers are us or something? And like, all right, we got to have a set of twins, and they're the wheelmen, and we got to have an old guy who's kind of cranky, but he's also the financier. Like, pull it back, guys. Like, if just do Ocean's 11 with the Doctor, and we'll be fine. It's okay.
Yeah. Ocean's 12.
Ocean's 12.
Number humor.
Ocean's number humor. It's only a Whovian.
Yes.
Hashtag Whovian problem.
So this looks really good. My only worry is that this Time Heist. It's such a great title too.
Right.
My only worry is that it's not going to be as good as this one. Which is a shame. You know what I mean? That's really it. It looks really good, though. It looks fun.
So when they were originally pitching the characters for this episode, when they were talking to us like months and months ago, they were talking about there was a woman. She's the most cruel or evil or feared woman or something in the universe, and she like runs the bank. Yeah. And I'm excited for that character, but all I can think of is Miss Foster from the Adipose episode. Like, she's just going to be another Miss Foster. Yeah, she's going to be misunderstood. She's going to die.
Yeah, she's also going to be another Miss Kismet from Bells of St. John. I see that too.
Ooh, yeah. Good. Yes, indeed. This promo, and these promos are terrible. I'm going to say this now. This season has the worst trailers. Like, come on. Really get me to want. Like, I'm not afraid when I watch them. I'm not interested. They're just like, stuff. Time heist. Alright.
Yeah. It's just more like, oh my god, that promo.
Oh my god. I'm trying to get excited about it, guys.
But it also looks like it's interesting if they have to rob the bank or they'll die.
I kind of like
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's making them do it?
Yeah, I wonder what sort of what the situation is there.
Why
we have to rob this bank or we'll die.
It's not just a heist; it's a time heist. We have to rob this bank, and we have to do it in multiple time zones.
Or in a certain amount of time.
Oh, snap! But wait, he's got a time machine. It doesn't really mean we could just use the TARDIS and... I can't wait. Okay. You're all going to hear this on a Friday, and it's going to... But I'm telling you, we're recording it on like a Monday. I can't wait!
Yes. Yeah, we act like it comes out on the Friday, but yeah, you're right, Monday. So we are actually 4 days away from the episode, so we have to wait a bit.
It's completely ridiculous. I cannot stand for this. I'm sorry. Set the TARDIS. Come on, let's do that. Just throw the switch. Guys, we're gonna go right now and watch it. We're gonna come back here and just tell you that we loved it at the end of this. Okay, ready? And flip the switch. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Time heist! Time heist!
You guys are all gonna have to wait a week to hear a review on this, but we've already recorded it. Like it's and who would have thought? Cameo by Brad Pitt. This time.
Yeah, just yeah.
Ocean's 15, right there.
It was nice. Yeah,
it was good. George
some motion capture. He did some motion capture. He was
the teller.
He was the teller. Yeah.
One of his eyes was George Clooney. The other was Brad Pitt. It happened.
It was the voice of Don Cheadle. No, I don't know. All right, guys. Well,
hey, thanks for tuning in.
Fun. Yeah,
we love doing these reviews. Thanks for listening.
Yes, and we will all see you next week for Time Heist.
Time Heist. And don't forget, whatever you do, listen.
Listen.
Or just casually pay attention. That's okay.
Yeah, just keep your ear to the ground. See what you can catch.
You never know. Hey, you hear something?
Bye.
Let us know. Bye.
Voices from the Vortex was written, edited by, and starring Matthew Whitecamp and Taylor Davidson.
With Danielle Davidson as the sexy voice of the TARDIS.
Theme music composed by Brian Wurst.
Visit our website, www.broadcastgallifrey.com.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for an enhanced podcast experience.
Follow us on Twitter @Vortex Podcast.
Like us on Facebook.
Follow us on Tumblr and Google+.
Subscribe to us on iTunes, and if you like what you heard, leave a review.
Ask us a fan question through any of these media, and we'll answer it on the podcast.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned to the Vortex.